Hey there, Wolfpack fans. It's me again, Kenton Gibbs, bringing you another episode of Locked On Wolfpack. And on today's episode, I'm going to be bringing you a midterm grade because we're going to break the season down like we would a full year of college, right? So you got 12 games. Each semester is going to be 6 games, and then the midterms are going to be half of those. So half of six, obviously three. 3-0. We're going to talk about each unit and how they are doing. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the offense and their 4 units. Of course, you've got the offensive line, the receivers and tight ends, the running backs, and the quarterback group. So we're going to talk about those groups, and I'm going to explain the grading rubric and scale, as well as why I feel like each group got the grade that they got. The next episode, we're going to be going over defense, and then we're going to be getting into the episode after that, we're going to be getting into the Kim's Keys for the UConn game as a pre-game show. So be ready for all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Wolfpack.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, folks. We're going over the midterm grades for the offense in this episode. And, I want y'all to understand that this is not, I'm going to tell you my grading rubric in detail because I need y'all to fully understand where I'm coming from. And it's okay if you disagree with me. I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with that. But I want you to know in depth, in detail, exactly how everything bore out, exactly how we need or we're getting things to play out in terms of what these grades are and how they came about. So first of all, let's just start off with this. These grades are not based upon what I expected any group to be or what I thought any group would be or how they're performing against expectations or anything, any preconceived notions or biases. These grades are very simply where I would put you based on your performance or where I put these groups based on their performance so far. If somebody asks me, because I've watched every second of NC State football this year, and so if somebody asks me, what grade do you give this group? I would say, hey, this is the grade or this is the grade based off of what I've seen so far. Okay. And so with that being said, the scaling doesn't weigh more, the scaling does weigh more or less um what based on what I would believe should happen in certain circumstances. So again, this isn't about what I think these teams or what I think these units should be in terms of like, oh, well, I expected Devin Leary to play at this level, and because he's not meeting it, the grade is going to be here. No, no, no. It's based upon as an NC State. If we're looking at the average, ACC unit, right? I'm not even or average Power 5 unit, really. How would they perform in the exact same situation you were put in here? So that's where these grades are going to come from. This is judging against average Power 5 unit, not average college unit, because average college you're looking at some real like group of 5 team going 6-6 is technically middle of the road, right? So that's not the scale here because that's you get blown out by every decent team that comes your way or every mediocre team that comes your way in terms of a Power 5 team. So that's not going to be the grading scale. The grading scale is based on what I would expect out of a Power 5 group. Now, here's the actual grading system. A means that you were outstanding. This group has been outstanding or better. That means we know what that means, right? If you're great or if you've perfected, that's what that is. B is good. You've been good, so on and so forth. C is average. C is you've been perfectly average. D is this group has been bad. This group has been rough. F is terrible. That is, you need to burn this thing down and start over from the beginning. Each grade has pluses or minuses on them if I feel like there's necessary. And the pluses or minuses mean that you've either shown that the potential to do more or you've shown the potential to be worse at a high level to where I'm like, I'm thinking that it's more likely that you either go wherever your plus or minus is at midterm. I'm expecting you. I wouldn't be surprised if you were at the lower one. If you jumped up a grade, that'd be a little bit more surprising. So we're going to start off with the buffet busters. We're going to start off with the big boys, the offensive line. The offensive line grade that I gave for this season so far is a B minus. And I know for some people, again, I need you to understand, no fluff pieces, no hit pieces here. I'm giving you what I think of every group and how they performed so far. The offensive line, I think, would get a B minus because they have not been outstanding and just like world beating and keeping Devin Leary untouched and providing holes that are, just ridiculously wide. But they have been doing well. They have played overall more than not. They have played good. They've played good football. So that's what gave the B. The minus came for two reasons. The minus is only there for two reasons. Obviously, the goal line and in short situations against ECU, a very big part of that. A very big part of that, because you cannot ignore 33% of what happened here. Because while there were big holes open and while there was a lot of really good runs broken off by Demi Sumo and Jordan Houston in that game, the reality is it's a game of inches and we need to be able to get those. And the fact that that was as much of a struggle as it was is what makes that one a B minus. And then we go to the wide receivers. The wide receivers are going to get, I'm sorry, not the wide receivers. I'm sorry. Running backs are next. Running backs. So the offensive line got a B minus. The running backs groups from me gets a B. And let me tell you, this group was very close, very, very close to getting a B plus. They were very right there on the edge of getting a B plus. And let me tell you why. This group has consistently, for the most part, done the carrying of the offense, done the heavy laboring of the offense. And granted, these defenses that they played against in terms of the first two games weren't world beaters. However, that is what Texas Tech does well. They stop the run well. If you look at their personnel and look at what their personnel's, if you look at the scouting report on their personnel, if you look at how their personnel plays the game, they are a unit that they stopped the run well, and we were able to run the ball at a good clip on them as well. So that's we weren't the offensive line was not absolutely dominating and opening up huge holes. So that has created a situation where Demi and Jordan have had to break tackles, make things shake after contact and all that. And let me go back to the offensive line for just a second. Another reason why they received a B minus is because they struggled a little bit in pass protection against Texas Tech. And I think Texas Tech is one of the better fronts that they'll see this year. I think they're one of the better fronts. I don't think they're the best front. I don't think that's the best front by any stretch of the imagination they're going to see this year. So that's my thought there. The offensive line gets a B minus. Running backs get a B. Again, the running backs, they have shown the ability to me, yardage alone is not the measure of what a running back is or is not doing. It's not just receiving yards alone. It's not just the full scope and full measure. How well are you doing in pass protection? How many yards are you gaining after contact? When the going gets tough and there's, defenders barreling down on you, do you have the ability to turn something, make chicken salad out of chicken scratch, right? Like that's, at the end of the day, to me, that is what makes running backs good or great and all that good stuff. And this was a good unit. This is a good unit. They have not shown me enough flashes that they can be outstanding to warrant the plus, but they've shown at times that, but they've also shown times where it's just like, what are you doing? Like Demi Sumo fumbling on the 1 yard line. Like, what are we doing? There are times where, and I think that this isn't Jordan Houston's fault, but it's a reality of who he is. There are times where the offense kind of uses Jordan Houston in a very similar fashion to Demi Sumo. Those are two extremely different backs with extremely different strengths. I don't think that it serves you well to use them in the exact same way, but I digress. I'm not the offensive coordinator. I don't get paid millions or hundreds of thousands to do that. So the running back group gets a B from me. Now, again, with that being said, these are midterms, okay? This does not mean that these groups don't have a chance to get better or get worse, hopefully not, but that's just what I'm looking at in terms of what I've seen out of these teams so far. I mean, out of these units so far. Next, we're going to get to the receivers and quarterbacks, where I know some of y'all going to want to jump me. I know. I'm all right with that. I've already made peace with it, okay? I've already made peace that things may not be exactly perfect through that segment. But one thing that is always perfect is saving money. And you know how you can do that? With upside. From cringing at the pump to getting eye-popping checks at your favorite restaurant, inflation is hitting us all where it hurts, and it really hurts. That's why I started using Upside. Upside is an incredible app where anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out, with every purchase, I'm earning cash back thanks to Upside. To get started, download the free Upside app and use my promo code LOCK and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. Check in at the business, pay as usual with a credit or debit card, and get paid. In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times as much cash back with Get Upside. So download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCK to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using promo code LOCKED. So now we're going to get to the quarterbacks and the receivers. The wide receiver group was tough to grade. This was the toughest unit. This was by far the toughest unit for me because the production, as far as the numbers go, isn't quite there. But if you're watching the film, if you're watching what these receivers are doing, they're overwhelmingly doing good stuff. And I'm sorry, one more thing about the offensive line at B-, because I kept thinking to myself, there was something else I was missing. Penalties as well. Penalties, the pre-snap penalties and all that, and the illegal man downfields and the holdings, those are just killers. They're drive killers. That's why they got B-. I was venturing along the lines of C+, but I decided to give them B-. Now, back to the receivers. The reality is they're doing good stuff on tape. And so why aren't they producing? Well, the quarterback position has given us precious little. It's just the reality. So how do you judge a unit that you look at and you say they're good, but it's just not, something's not there, it's not clicking, it's not real. How do you judge that unit? And that's when I had to say to myself, you've got to take the thought of what should be or what could be out of it. Just how are they playing? And with that in mind, this group gets a B. This group gets a B because they've made tough contested catches. They have run good enough routes to create a good amount of separation or to get themselves in advantageous situations on the football field. Because more than anything else, that is what you want out of every position on the field. Put your team in a position to win based on what you have done, right? And it's always the old school phrase of coaches coach up basically 2 things, okay? The first 4 steps out of, the first 4 steps when the ball is snapped and all that good stuff. Generally, they coach the first 4 steps. And other than that, they coach the next 4 steps in terms of when you're doing something, when you're making a football move that's very important. So for receivers, it's getting in and out of breaks. It's how you stack a corner if you're running a go route. It's how you sell a go route if you're running a comeback, right? Like it's that type of stuff. How you finish blocks is not coached by the receiving coach. How you break tackles. Coaches can, put you through drills to help you, but it's a certain amount of that. It's a certain je ne sais quoi that you either have or you don't in the open field. That's the reality there. So in what these players are doing, in what they put on film, I've got to give them a B. Because, again, every position, the job is get the team in an advantageous situation, right? If you're a defensive end and you make the ball bubble and bounce out, and there's supposed to be an overhang coming down, or there's supposed to be a contained man outside of you coming down to funnel the ball back to you and help, and they don't do that. That doesn't mean that you didn't do your job on that play. It just means you gave up a big play because it wasn't your fault. And that's somebody else didn't do their job. You did your job. As a defensive lineman, if you get a great rush off and you get right there, but one of your corners got beat and pressed right away and the receiver was wide open, basically as soon as the quarterback catches the snap, there's nothing, it's not fair to negatively grade you because of something that was out of your control. And what I've seen with these receivers, they've done a good enough job. They've done actually not good enough. They've done a good job through many points this year. It's just, something just ain't right there, which brings me to the quarterback position, which was by far, my worst grade of all the units. And that's, I hate to give a spoiler there, but it's, with our defense, if you've got two good ears to hear what's going on with the game or two good eyes to see what's going on with the game, that I'm not telling you a tall tale here. No group on defense is pushing a bad grade here. Quarterback group, particularly, I mean, of course, because Devin Leary is the starting quarterback, he's the leader, he's all that good stuff. The grade is a D plus. It's a D plus. And I know some people are going to be mad at that. I know some people are going to say I'm being too harsh. Again, this is not about what was the final score. This is not about what was the outcome of the games per se. I'm breaking this thing down unit by unit. How are you impacting the game and the team? Unit by unit. And again, this isn't about just, you put up huge numbers. Putting up huge numbers against Charleston Southern that's not going to move the needle for me in any meaningful way. However, throwing a critical interception that, had that basically breathed life back into ECU, that will move the needle for me, just in the wrong way. The inability to hit plays where I just talked about the receivers and how they're doing their job. They're getting separation. They're stacking the corners. They're doing all of the things that you want to see out of your receivers. They're just not getting the ball because it's misplaced. It's a couple feet. It's a couple feet behind them. It's a couple feet over their head. It's a read where you're throwing what is the route that I'm looking for? You're throwing a curl route against a soft cover two. It's one of the worst reads you could possibly make, and yet it got made. So I mean, I hate to do this. I hate to. And again, this is not influenced by, I thought that Devin was going to be this. And so I'm going to tell you right now, the reality of what we have seen from Devin Leary this season has been, it's been bad. It's been another level of bad. Okay. Let me put it to you like this. All right. The reality is the completely average middle of the road QBR, basically saying you've been completely blah, is 50. Through these 3 games, Devin Leary's is 47. And mind you now, the 3 games came against ECU, Charleston Southern, Texas Tech. I'm sorry, but what? Not a single QBR over 40 against an FBS opponent. It's, this is not to say that Devin Leary is broken and beyond repair. This is not to say that Devin Leary is just, garbage truck juice now. It's not that. It's that his play has to pick up. It has to pick up. Again, every unit on the team, every single unit on the team, I have not seen a single unit performing as poorly on a consistent basis. I haven't. And that's the reality. That's the reality there. So it's tough for me to sit here and say, oh, well, I'm going to give him a C just because. No, the truth is the truth is the truth. And if I'm looking at the grading scale, he hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been to the point where it's like, okay, whoever is on the bench behind him, they can't be worse than this. But it has been tough to watch. It has been difficult to watch at times because, again, you've got receivers putting themselves in winning positions and the ball just isn't getting there. And that's on one man. That's the reality. Again, the Texas Tech defensive line was getting home more so than we'd seen in the first two games. I understand that. But there were also clean pockets where passes just weren't hit. So, that's the interception against ECU. The pocket was very clean. The nearest man couldn't have been no closer than 2 to 3 yards. And that doesn't sound like much until you really conceptualize what that looks like on a football field. Until you really conceptualize the fact that there's 3 feet in every yard. The nearest man away from you is about 6 feet away, and you're not hitting the passes that you need to. That's tough. That's tough. That's So here's the thing. I have no doubt in my mind that Devin Leary will get this turned around, but it has to happen. It has to, because there's 2 different versions of this season. There's 2 different versions. There's a version where Devin Leary gets on track and all the other groups continue to fire at the pace that they're firing at. Or let me say this. There are 2 different scenarios if all the other groups fire how they're supposed to. There's a scenario where Devin catches up, gets on board, does the things, whatever is going on, he shakes it loose. And this team goes on and wins everything that they want to win. Everything, every single goal that was seen as even slightly feasible coming in. If Devin Leary catches up, they go and get those goals. There's also a world where Devin Leary continues to play at this level. And in that world, this team wins 8, maybe, possibly 9 at best, at max. But you don't go to the ACC championship. Playoff, don't even, playoffs? You're talking playoffs? No, not happening. Any 10-win season? The 9th game was going to be a bowl game. No 10th win is in sight there. But again, that's just how I feel about this thing. We're about to land this thing, but come on back. We'll go over these grades one more time. So we're about to land this thing. But again, the offensive line, B-. They've been solid, but they've also shown some moments where they looked real shaky. Again, the pre-snap penalties, the drive-killing holdings, all that good stuff, that's tough. You cannot have that going forward. The running back group, they've been a solid B. They've been good. They have not been good enough to warrant like, oh, they're outstanding, but they have not been average. To say that they've been average would be a lie. Demi being the revelation that he's been has been a phenomenal thing for this team. It has been necessary to get us wins. Jordan Houston, we know who he is. He's a proven commodity. He does what he does well, still doing it well. The wide receiver group, they're putting us in position to win. We're just not getting what we need out of the quarterback position to get the ball to them, to get it done. So that's why, I believe that the receiving core has the ability to go to an A, but who knows? The quarterback position, D+, it's been tough. But we have seen flashes of like, we're nearing average. We've seen flashes of it. So that's just my opinion there. And again, no fluff pieces, no hit pieces. That's just what it is. Peace and love, y'all. Don't forget to come back because we're doing the defense next, all right? Peace and love, y'all. And as always, go Pack.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.